On today's episode of Voices from the Touchline, I'm joined by Rob Potter, UEFAB coach, tutor, and author with Oxford United. Rob has just released his new book, The Golden Age of Player Development, a Foundation Phase Guide, which explores why the early years of a child's football journey are so important. We'll talk about how coaches can balance fun and learning, support parents, and put people before players in grassroots football. Fantastic to have you on, Rob. Congratulations on the book and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, it's brilliant to be on.
Yes, I'm excited because I think this is the first podcast we're having with not just a coach but an author as well. So definitely something I'm looking forward to.
Good,
Yeah,
good. Sorry, a little bit different.
yeah, definitely. So, getting started here, what inspired you to write the book, The Golden Age of Player Development?
I think for me, there was two kind of main factors. One, to see if I could, yeah, it was just something I kind of started about, probably started about 3 years ago, just for a short space of time, then actually put it away for a couple of years. And it was about last Christmas. I kind of thought, actually, it's around Christmas time, bit bored, not much to do, not much coaching. I'll kind of get back into it, and it kind of rolled from there. And the other main thing was to maybe just to give something back. If I can get a book published, it can help even one person become a better coach, then, what better motivation to do it than is there than that?
Certainly. And the title suggests the foundation phase is a golden age. So, understanding from the author himself, why do you think these years are so special in a child's football journey?
Obviously, there's lots of bits in terms of the technical side of it and all the rest of it, but the main thing for me is just that building that lifelong love of the game. That's where children either get hooked into football and absolutely love it, or if they're in a bad environment, actually could be put off football for life. And it's where you fall in love with hopefully having a football and actually want to be on the ball, and it's a big consideration. You see lots of kids, especially when they get older and they don't want the ball's like a hot potato. They don't want it anywhere near them. And actually, if you're doing well in the foundation phase, if you've got a player who's happy to have the ball, I think that's a great starting point. But yeah, I think it's mainly just getting players to fall in love with football.
Superb, as simple as that, because retention is, of course, a very, very important factor in grassroots. And I ask you in the best way possible, because see, there are so many coaching books on the market, in the market. How is your book different from other coaching guides available to grassroots and academy coaches?
Yeah, I think for me, obviously, I think that mine kind of hopefully it's a really well-rounded book in terms of it touches on everything. It touches on the stuff you'll learn on courses, so the introduction to coaching football in the UK and a bit on the UEFA, but it's also those bits that kind of as a coach you kind of pick up over the years through trial and error. And that's another thing at the end of the day, if like coaches haven't got to hopefully go through some of the mistakes that I'm sure most of us have made at points by actually reading the book and finding actually, you know what, if I do this differently, I'll have better results, then hopefully that's powerful. But yeah, so I think it's a book that covers a little bit of everything. It's well rounded and it covers a lot of areas.
Yes, I'm sure with all the knowledge that you have accumulated over the years, I'm sure you have put a good piece out. And if a coach picks up your book today, what's the first key message you want them to take away?
I think, and it's the first chapter, and I put it at the start because I think it's important, is just creating the environment. I think the environment you create, obviously the tactical side and the technical side and formations and high presses and stuff like that is marvelous. But for me, I'm probably a better social corner coach than I am that side of it. And that environment side of it, you can get that right, everything else flourishes off of that. So, create an environment where, and it kind of goes back to that retention. Players
Yeah.
love turn up. If they're running out of the car and can't wait to get down to sessions, that's a massive tick in the box. If you get to the end of sessions and it's, oh, can't we play for a few more minutes? That's a massive tick in the box. Things like that can't be understated. If kids are running through a session, they can't wait to get back in the car. Obviously, that's a slightly different message. But if you get that environment right, all the other stuff, the technical stuff, the tactical stuff, becomes easier as well.
For sure, because a lot of us coaches at some point in our life have been guilty trying to, put in a good technical session with detailing and then compromising on the fun element. So now I'm excited to know, can you walk us through one of your favorite session examples or practices from the book that always works with young players? Because then you see this becomes a kind of a copy paste that at least coaches can try out in one session.
So, and I'll go with, and it's kind of a simple one, but I think for me, like a big part of the book is like football fitness and the fact that in the foundation phase you can do all that with footballs and little sort of tag games. But one of my favorite is actually it's a game called Chicken or Hero, which like actually I've done it with even like the under 19s last season and they absolutely loved it. So, but yeah, basically you can do without the ball. You've got a tagger in, bit like Bulldog, tagger in the middle. Start off without balls. Everybody's got to get to the other side, and if they get tagged to become a defender. So lots of ABCs in terms of that agility, balance, coordination, lots of fitness, but it's actually kind of disguised because it's not you're running laps or we're doing a bleep test or anything like that. It's done in a fun game. And then you can add footballs to it. So the defender's got to tackle the football and put it in the goal. So you've got some tackling, you've got some finishing, and all the other players that have got tackled have got a football each. So you've got if they're getting their head up, they've got a decision of if there's a defender in front of us, we want to dribble, try some 1v1 skills. Actually, the defender's on the other side. I can run with the ball, I can take bigger touches. So actually, there's loads and loads of technical outcomes you can get in what is actually a really kind of basic game. And that's another kind of key takeaway for me is the fact that it doesn't have to be, coaches on social media see Man City's latest, phase of play and bits like that. And it's like, they're essentially 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and actually making it simple makes your life a lot easier.
Well, now I have a belief that when you're coaching a player, you're not just coaching the player, you're also working with the parents. So you're actually coaching two at one time. So parents, of course, play a very, very big role, especially in grassroots football. How does your book address working with parents during specifically the foundation phase?
That's a very good question. I think for me, parents on the coaching side get a very bad rep. 99% of parents only want what's best for their child. And if you can create an environment where the parents feel like they're included and they're part of it, that's really helpful. Yes, you'll get that 1% who are just an absolute pain, but most people are in it for the right reason. So just things like having a parents' meeting at the start of the season, laying out your expectations, explaining what you're trying to do. So, because mixed messages is a hard one. If you've got the coach is trying to tell a player one thing and then the parents trying to tell them something else, it can be really confusing for the child themselves. But yeah, just setting out your expectations and building a bond with parents as well as players, is massively helpful.
Yes, definitely. It is, I would say, the what you'd call, a collaborative effort to try and get the best out of the kid, child for sure.
Yeah.
And in the book, you also talk about building people first and players second. Now, this I would say is a very common tagline within the coaching fraternity, but how much of it gets practically implemented? Again, we need to investigate further. So, what if so? In your book, what does that look like practically in a session? People first, players second.
I think it's as simple as just asking questions. And it's not only asking questions because you know, little Theo isn't just my centre mid. He's actually a person as well, and actually understanding him as a person, it builds a better bond, but it also makes you understand that person as a coach, so you can actually get to a gauge of what your players are like from session to session, and whether they're maybe a bit off and maybe having a bad time, and that can be helpful for away from the game. So, but yeah, it's asking questions, but it's also then remembering the answers because like. If you ask, well, what are you going to do at the weekend? Someone says, "Oh, I'm going to the zoo." You can then follow up on the next session and say, "Oh, how was the zoo at the weekend? How powerful is that for the child themselves?" Because actually, it's the coach doesn't just ask me a question. He cares about me because he's asked a question and he's remembered and he's asked a follow-up question as well.
So now you see again in the foundation phase, it's probably easier to identify mistakes rather than the good parts in players. So, in your opinion, how important are mistakes and freedom of play for players at this stage, and how do you encourage coaches to actually embrace that?
Yeah, professional footballers make mistakes. At the end of the day, look, the best players in the world make mistakes. So if you're berating a 7-year-old for making a mistake, it might not be the best way to go. I think the thing for me is if players are making mistakes and they're learning, that's obviously brilliant. And I'd rather a player learn through kind of a bit of guide discovery, a bit of Q&A. If you can get them to make those light bulb moments themselves, that's far better than me just telling someone what they need to do. And just kind of if I'll say to my players, look, I want you to go and beat a player. If you don't beat a player, I'm never going to have a go at you for that. The only thing I might question is if you try to beat the same player with the same skill 5 times and you don't do it, I might just say, look, why don't we try something a little bit different, potentially another way of beating the player. But yeah, you want players to be positive, and part of that is making mistakes and learning from them.
Well, so there are so many beliefs in coaching. Everyone has their own set of beliefs. What's one myth about coaching young children that your book challenges?
Yeah, I think it probably goes back to the fact that actually they've got to do lots of running to be fit. You know, at the end of the day, yes, once they get into YDP phase and beyond, obviously puberty changes things. But really, young kids, it does, you know, at the end of the day, the more time you can spend on the ball, the better your players are going to get, you know, and they can become more athletic and fitter and healthier and work on their ABCs while having the ball. So actually, don't just get the balls out at the end and play a game. Actually, have a ball out for the whole session. Spend as much time as you can with a ball per player, especially like if you want to do some ball mastery or some little tag games and stuff like that. But yeah, the more time players spend on the ball, the better they're going to have be with it. You know, it won't be as I said earlier, that hot potato they're desperate to get rid of.
Right. Rob, the more I hear your opinion, the more convinced I am to go and actually purchase your book. And what I think is special is that, your book is more relatable towards a lot of coaches in their actual environments rather than us picking up a book from Man City or Barcelona and trying to apply it and then wondering why it's not working well. So I have a lot more questions in my mind, but can you just take maybe 30 seconds or a minute to tell the audience about where we can actually purchase your book from?
Yeah, so it's available from the publishers, which is Hawksmoor Publishing. In the UK, that's available with free postage and packaging. I think obviously if it's shipped internationally, there's a little bit of a charge. Or Amazon. Obviously, is a great place to pick it up, especially for speedily delivery. Or I think it's available on Kindle and it's also available on Apple stores as well as places like Blackwell's and Waterstones. So yeah, plenty of places to get it, which is great. It's also a bit surreal to kind of see a book you've written on Amazon. That's still a bit bonkers, if I'm honest.
Well, it's a huge achievement for sure. And for the audience listening, the link to Rob's amazing book is in the description. So, Rob, just to carry on, could you share a success story of a player or team where applying these foundation phase principles really made a difference?
Yeah, that's a very good question as well. I think my youngest son's team, you know, we did a lot of things right in terms of things like rotating positions and equal minutes and stuff like that. And actually, like teams who don't do that in the foundation phase probably will have more success because actually they understand the positions a bit more and the stronger players play more. But once they get older, actually then those bits in terms of more well-rounded players and having up, especially when you go up through the age groups and you've got more players on the pitch. If you've only been playing your strongest players, and suddenly you're relying on some of those players who get 5 minutes at the end of the game, you're going to struggle. And actually, then those bits on the foundation phase actually become even more important. So doing things right there will help create more success later down the line.
Definitely. And a lot of, as coaches, we have the belief that yes, youth football development over winning. However, in reality, many coaches feel under pressure to win games. So, how does your book help shift that mindset towards development at youth level?
Yeah, and I think it's the fact that look, winning down the road, as you know, the older players get towards first team, it becomes more of an important factor. And everybody likes to win games of football. Don't get me wrong. Like, you know, it's not a bad thing to want to win. But the fact that actually sometimes development, if you put development before winning, especially to start with, you'll get more success down the road. So, you know, it's just balancing it out and yeah, do things right to start with, build those foundations, get players who are comfortable on the ball, comfortable playing different positions. They've all had good amount of game time. Will help you, and then the winning will then take care of itself if you get those bits right.
Agreed 100%. And now, since your book is more relatable towards a lot of coaches who are part of this audience, if a brand new coach, so someone with, let's say, 0 days of experience, someone who's about to take their first session, they start reading your books, so how would you guide them step by step?
Yeah, so this goes kind of back to what I said earlier is that it's a really comprehensive guide. It goes through obviously building environment, how you kind of your coaching considerations, your practices in terms of practical practice design, ball rolling time to the practice themselves. You've got some practice you can work on, and it goes through the match day side of it as well. So hopefully it gives the coach a little bit of everything where it will give them a bit of confidence because like courses are great, and I'm never going to badmouth coaching courses because they're part of development. But actually, if you want to become a good coach, there's a big kind of well-rounded experience is massive. Going away and learning away from courses is big. So hopefully it kind of ticks that box.
So I think it's a mixture of everything, and definitely your book
Yeah.
can accelerate development. So, you've worked across boys, girls, and community programs. How adaptable would you say your book is for different contexts?
Sorry, say that bit again.
So, you've achieved by working across boys, girls, and community programs. So, how adaptable is your book for these different contexts?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. I think yeah, there's a little bit of that experience of all of it. There is difference between coaching girls, coaching boys, coaching the academy, coaching development centre. But at the same time, it is still coaching. At the end of the day, look, they're still players, they're still in front of you. Some of the expectations as a coach will be different. If you're working in an academy setting, it's kind of creating players for a first team. If you're working for grassroots, it's more towards that end of just enjoyment, participation. But yeah, I think it kind of covers all the bases of that would help pretty much every coach.
Superb. And have you managed to, share your book with coaches within the fraternity? If so, what are their thoughts? What have they said about your book?
Yeah, so I've had some good feedback so far from the book with people I know, and there was one coach who said the other week that actually his book was great, and what he'd do is actually he's kind of giving it to his club's kind of head coach, who said, actually, do you know what, this is something that we should be giving out to all new coaches when they come into the club, which like to hear something like that is pretty powerful. So yeah, the feedback on the whole has been very, very good. So I'm really pleased.
Well, that's not a surprise at all. And, you've coached in different environments from grassroots to academies to community settings. So how did all these experiences shape what went into the book?
Yeah, I think it's just that knowledge over different, and I think if you not every coach has got time to do lots of different sessions and lots of different environments. I'm lucky that obviously now I do it for a living, and it helps. But I think that adaptability is a key thing. Like today, I went from doing a session in a prison this morning for 15 prisoners, working on finishing in possession, to going out this afternoon and overseeing the college reserve team coaches who are doing a match prep session on playing in a 4-5-1 mid block, so out of possession. So yeah, being adaptable, being able to work with different coaches, work with different groups of players, I think it is key. So I say to all coaches, the more you can get out and do it, the more you're going to become adaptable and you can go into different environments and feeling comfortable. If you can go into a prison and coach prisoners, what can't you do?
Well, for sure. I mean, see, you're a coach, you're a tutor, you're now an author. But what, of course, is very impressive is that you've gone into prison and delivered coach education. So I think if you could just maybe, in detail tell us all about the experience, what it's been like, what the standards have been like, the standards of football, what the nature of the inmates have been like, how the experience was in total. I'm sure a lot of listeners would be inquisitive.
Yeah, I could talk. That could be a separate podcast if we're honest. But yeah, it's honestly when I first started, like full time, that was part of the job. And if I'm honest, went in there the first time, God, how I can't could you can't even imagine how nervous I was. It was unbelievable. But actually, I found that a lot, these people there, and I don't work with like the worst. There's no murderers or anything like that. They're just people, normal people like me, you, people who be listening to this podcast who've just got themselves in a silly situation, made a silly mistake, and end up, in prison. And honestly, some absolutely brilliant people. So I've done three lots of coach education, so it's delivering an old level one in the UK, some practical, some classroom based, and now we've got a different project we're running in the local prison to me, where we're actually going, it's a football based program, so it's 9 sessions. We're going there, working on some team building stuff, and then some in possession, out possession, transition, and then the 10th session is a game against an Oxford United coaches team. So the coaches will be coming in, have a game against a cohort, and then some food and a bit of a celebration afterwards. So, at the end of the day, look, when people get released from prison, if you can help them, and obviously they've kind of had a bit of team building, a bit of kind of work on themselves as people, as well as some fitness and some enjoyment. Actually, what we want is when people get released from prison, they're less likely to come back in, and through doing the coaching courses and bits like that, and having positive impacts on people. If it means people are less likely to go back in, then that's a massive win for everyone.
It's inspirational. Is there any coach who you've probably, been in, I mean, not in touch with, but you're aware of who's actually got out of prison and decided to pursue coaching or some position within the game?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's not with Oxford personally, but we have because especially because the prisons in Oxford, it's a remand prison, so they're prisoners from all over the country. So we have had inmates who've gone on and they've been coaching for, I think one was with Millwall. So we've had some success with coaches kind of coming out. We've also done the coach education course, run it for people on probation as well. So it's great seeing the impact.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, you've obviously had an experience that's truly unique. I don't know how many of us coaches would have the good fortune of experiencing something like this. So amazing. And also, like
Yeah,
a
we
lot
also
of,
went in
yeah.
there the other week and we did a tournament against them as well.
Oh, what was it like? What was the atmosphere like? What was the atmosphere like?
What, the atmosphere in the prison?
Yeah. So, with the tournament that you conducted, what was the atmosphere like?
Oh,
What was, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so the tournament there was four teams of four different wings, so A wing, B wing, C wing, D wing. There was a team of guards and there was a team of like people from the outside, which me and another coach was part of. And yeah, it was a really positive environment. Like obviously everyone to beat the guards, and actually no one did because they won the final. We got through to the final. We beat three of the wings and drew against the other one, and lost against the guards in the final. So, but yeah, it was positive. We went in for lunch, and everybody had lunch and like had chats with people and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was really positive. It was a really kind of enjoyable experience.
I think this is proof that football can actually change lives for the better. So that's wonderful. Yeah.
100%.
Yes, and like a lot of grassroots coaches, you started coaching your son's team, if I'm not mistaken. And so, how did you, being both a dad and a coach, influence your philosophy?
Ooh. Being a dad and a coach is hard. It's very hard, and it took me a lot of trial and error and some sulking children and sulking me at some point. Yeah, getting that balance right between being a father and a coach, and coaching your own child, it is difficult. Which I'm actually coaching my son again now because he's on the college program that I'm running. So, but yeah, no, we got it down now. So, but yeah, kind of finding that balance. So they're part of the team, and they're technically not your son or your daughter for that hour and a half. They are just another player. You don't treat them any differently than you would anyone else. and just setting those ground rules so everybody's, you both understand that there's no special treatment. You won't get treated better than anyone, worse than anyone. You are a player. I'll treat you exactly the same as other players. And once we get in the car, we're then father and son again.
Superb. And now, see, with all your experience in coaching and how active you are on social media with regards to coaching and how enthusiastic you are to help coaches around the world, and with your book, I think your opinion truly holds value. It has always held value, but now I think there's more of evidence towards the fact. So, looking ahead, what changes would you like to see in how grassroots football approaches the foundation phase in, let's say, the next 10 years?
Well, in the UK especially, there's the switch to 3v3 with the younger age groups, and then the size of the teams going down a bit, so they get to 11v11 later, which also a lot of this is change, and people don't like change. I understand that. Like a lot of coaches, they see match of the day at the weekend, and that's kind of what they want to emulate. But under sevens isn't match of the day. It's not Man United. It's not Arsenal. So smaller formats, I think, is brilliant because it means more touches on the ball, more players, fall in love with the football because, the more players on the pitch, the less time you spend on the football, unless you're kind of a truly dominant player. And, in this country, going to 11v11 and full size goals at under 13, you see the size of the goalkeepers, it's ridiculous. So yeah, going to 11v11 later, I think is good personally.
Great. And I think why not? See, I've introduced you at the beginning of the podcast, but why don't you tell us about your coaching journey, about everything you've achieved in football, all the milestones, and yeah, your experience in general.
Yeah, it's a great experience. I actually did had a yearly appraisal recently and kind of put down your coaching strengths and what you want to achieve and what you have achieved and kind of looking back at some of the stuff I've achieved, it's a little bit bonkers. Starting off as a coach who's just helping out their son's grassroots team to now working full time in football, being able to do some work with the FA, delivering coach education events, and some of the stuff like social media, like being able to go out and be on social media actually is powerful, and it's actually helped me with lots of things like going to Barcelona, going to Girona, going to Ajax, doing coaching visits like that. It's been absolutely fantastic, and some of the kind of more weird and wacky stuff, like actually kind of going and coaching the prisons, things people don't do, going and doing a keynote speech to 200 police officers at an event was kind of a bit surreal as well. Going to St George's Park and coaching there and bits like that. But I think for me, it's kind of just put yourself out there. I put myself out there and probably get some stick for it from, some circles because I'm very active, but I enjoy it, and hopefully, if it helps people, then doing a service. Fingers crossed.
Well, talking about social media, that's how I came across yourself. And, you're quite, I'd say, big on X or Twitter, as you call it. So your X handle, RJP Coach. It has around
Yeah,
21.3K followers, which is huge. And it's not just that, it's a dead profile. I mean, you really put some good quality stuff on your profile as well as on the famous Sunday Share, which is like a resource for a lot of coaches. So can you go into detail into what your motivation is? Because it's not exactly you doing self-promotion, it's also you adding value and giving ideas to other coaches and helping coaches. So just walk me through how this started and the end objective.
yeah. It started off. To be honest with you, it's just a way. My missus does not want to listen to me talk about football 24/7, and although my kids are playing football, they want to listen to me talk about football 24/7. So just started off as literally just a way to get some thoughts out of my head and put them somewhere and put them out there, and actually people kind of resonated with it. And honestly, X. 95% of X is not great. There's a lot of stuff on there, racism, all that stuff. But the coaching part of it is absolutely fantastic. There's some brilliant people on there. The Sunday Share is absolutely fantastic. Every Sunday there's loads of coaches from around the world putting on session plans. putting on, loads of different bits, coaching philosophies, articles, some fantastic content, which is all going to help people. So, and that's what it comes down to. It's just helping people, giving something back. Like I've been coaching for a long time now, and a lot, I love coaching, but actually being able to help other coaches is even more powerful, almost.
For sure. And if you had to give one advice, one piece of advice to any coach starting their journey in the foundation phase, what would it be?
I did tweet about, well, I don't know what I could post about this now next the other day, but actually being yourself, I think, as young coaches, you're very influenced by those around you, other coaches, and probably how you were coached as a child as well. And I'll go back to how I was coached, and it was very old school now, like, lots of blowing the whistle, lots of shouting, lots of stopping, lots of line drills, stuff like that. And actually, yeah, just letting your character shine. Like me, yeah, I'm a talker. I can talk for England. I think I can connect well with people, and just be yourself. If you're loud, be loud, but obviously think about how people take that, because obviously if you're loud and you come across aggressive, that's not great. But if you're loud and that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're quiet, that's not necessarily a bad thing as well. If your players listen and respect you, they'll listen. If you're bubbly, that's great. However your character is, just be yourself and enjoy yourself, I think, with the other thing. Like too many coaches, I remember especially when I first started, I spent so much time stressing about coaching, and like especially if we'd lost a game, God, that would ruin my weekend. And actually you get to the point of realizing that it's not the end of the world. I've coached God knows how many games now over the years, and you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, and you're going to learn from it, but then you're going to put it to bed and go on to the next thing. So don't take things too personally. Just enjoy the journey.
Rob, this is amazing. I think I can hear you for hours or days about coaching with all the value you put in. Um, I think, yes, I'm very grateful that you've given time out to do this podcast. For all the coaches out there, they can follow you on X on RJP Coach. And I'm, after this call, going to order your book through Amazon. If you could just,
Fantastic.
well, just for the last time, if you could just, for the audience who are listening till the end, just tell them again about where they can get access to your book from.
Yep, so my book is available through Hawksmoor Publishing, it's available through Amazon, it's available on Kindle, it's available through Apple stores and most good bookshops. So yeah, it will hopefully give coaches something that a comprehensive guide that will help them in their foundation phase coaching.
Perfect, Rob. This was fantastic. Thank you for your time.
Much appreciated. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed that.